Imagine the bright tropical skies over the Pacific in early 1943. The Japanese pilots in their Zero fighters felt like absolute gods. They dominated the air with a speed and grace no one expected. To them, every dogfight was a chance to prove their supreme skill. The rising sun seemed to shine only on their victorious wings then. Confidence was the very air they breathed as they patrolled daily. They looked at the American planes and saw only slow targets. The Zeros were nimble, turning on a dime in the blue heat. Japanese aviators laughed at the heavy designs coming from the West. In their eyes, the U.S. pilots were just amateurs in steel boxes. They believed their superior warrior spirit was an unbeatable weapon. The sky was their private playground, or so they truly thought. Every report that reached the high command confirmed their glory. American pilots were struggling to survive the Japanese deadly dance. The arrogance in the Japanese barracks was thick and very heavy. They mocked the idea that anything American could ever catch them. To the elite pilots, the Pacific was a Japanese lake for eternity. They were blinded by a pride that hid the approaching storm now. But while they celebrated, a strange new shadow was appearing. A twin-engine beast was starting to haunt the distant horizons. The Japanese dismissed it as just another slow and bulky failure. They didn't realize that American engineers had a dark surprise. A lethal secret was being forged in a factory far across the ocean. Something was about to appear that would change their laughter. When the P-38 Lightning first arrived, the air became very strange. It had two long tails and a cockpit sitting right in the middle. The Japanese pilots pointed and joked at the bizarre metal twin. To them, it looked like a flying tractor, not a real fighter. They couldn't imagine how such a heavy machine could ever win. The sky was about to introduce them to a brand new fear. They mocked its size, thinking it was far too slow to turn. The Zero pilots believed they could fly circles around the beast. In their minds, the P-38 was a desperate and failing American design. Every time they saw those twin booms, they looked for easy kills. The high-pitched whine of its engines sounded like a dying bird. They didn't see the lethal fangs hidden behind that strange smile. But that bulky frame hid a speed that broke every single rule. The Lightning could dive and climb faster than anything in Japan. It carried 4 heavy machine guns and a 20mm cannon in the nose. Suddenly, the Japanese weren't the ones doing the chasing anymore. The fork-tailed devil was tearing their nimble Zeros into pieces. The laughter in the Japanese barracks was replaced by cold silence. The P-38 wasn't just a plane. It was a long-range lethal predator. It could fly hundreds of miles into territory they thought safe. The Japanese commanders began to realize their ocean had no walls. A specific and deadly shadow was now hunting their very heart. While the pilots fought in the air, another war was starting. A secret message was traveling through the dark, silent wires now. Deep in a humid basement in Hawaii, a breakthrough happened. Cryptographers were working day and night to break a code. The JN-25 code was the shield of the entire Japanese Navy. It was a labyrinth of numbers that seemed truly impossible then. But the American codebreakers were relentless in their dark pursuit. A single string of text was about to change the world. A secret message flashed across the silent, heavy radio wires. It detailed a very specific flight schedule for a high official. The date, the time, and the exact coordinates were all there. The intelligence officers looked at the paper with absolute shock. They realized they were looking at the movements of one man. The mastermind behind the Pearl Harbor attack was now exposed. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto was planning to visit his front lines. He believed his own security was perfect and totally unbreakable. The high command in Washington faced a very heavy question. Should they strike the man and reveal they broke the code? Or should they let him live and miss the ultimate chance? The order from the very top was gelid and incredibly final. A lethal plan was set in motion to cut the head. They needed a plane that could fly far into enemy air. Only the P-38 Lightning had the fuel and the lethal speed. The fork-tailed devils were chosen for the most secret hunt. A date with destiny was being written in the Hawaiian sand. The hunters were preparing for a mission that seemed impossible. The mission was officially named Operation Vengeance for a reason. It was the longest fighter interception ever attempted in history. 18 pilots climbed into their P-38s with heavy racing hearts. They were briefed on a flight path that defied all logic. To reach the target, they had to fly 400 miles. Every gallon of fuel was a precious second of their lives. The planes dropped down until they were skimming the waves. They flew just 30 feet above the vast and blue Pacific. Salt spray hit the windshields as they raced in total silence. Staying below the Japanese radar was the only way to live. One single mistake or a twitchy finger would end it all. The fork-tailed devils moved like shadows across the water. A strict and total radio silence was maintained for hours. The pilots could only hear the steady hum of twin engines. They checked their watches, counting down the fateful minutes. Navigating by dead reckoning was a test of absolute skill. The pressure in those cockpits was enough to break iron. They were hunting a ghost that didn't know they were coming. Suddenly, the green island of Bougainville appeared on the horizon. The P-38s climbed rapidly into the morning clouds to hide. They were exactly where they needed to be at that time. The trap was laid, and the hunters were perfectly ready now. Far above, two Japanese transport planes were cruising slowly. A moment of absolute terror was about to explode there. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto sat in his transport plane that morning. He looked out at the escort of 6 Elite Zeros. Everything seemed peaceful as they cruised over the green jungle. He was a man who lived by the clock and schedules. In his mind, his journey was as safe as a stroll. The Admiral didn't realize his time was down to seconds. Suddenly, the morning sun reflected off twin-engine metal booms. 4 P-38s broke through the clouds like vengeful spirits now. The Japanese pilots froze as they saw the legendary devils. The laughter they once shared in the barracks was dead. They scrambled to protect the leader they had failed already. The sky was no longer a playground, but a slaughterhouse. The terror in those cockpits was absolute and bone-chilling. They realized they had been intercepted by a ghost army. There was no warning and no chance to call help. The Americans had flown across the ocean to find them. The agile Zeros tried to turn, but they were trapped. The bulky P-38s were now the masters of the blue. The lead American plane locked its sights on the transport. The twin engines roared as it began a deadly dive. Tracer rounds started to stitch the air with bright fire. Yamamoto watched as the hunter finally closed the long gap. The Mastermind was staring directly into the eyes of death. The world was about to witness a chilling and final. The lead P-38 pilot, Rex Barber, didn't hesitate now. He squeezed the trigger and let the heavy lead fly. The nose of the Lightning erupted in a fiery flash. Its 4 machine guns and cannon tore into metal. The Betty bomber shivered under the weight of steel. Flames began to lick the wing as the engine failed. The transport plane banked sharply, trailing thick black smoke. It was a death spiral toward the dense island jungle. Yamamoto sat inside, perhaps still clutching his samurai sword. He was the mastermind who had once seemed so untouchable. But now, he was just a man caught in falling. The trees rushed up to meet the pride of Japan. High above, the Elite Zero escorts could only watch on. They had failed in the one mission that truly mattered. The shock was so deep, it paralyzed their very hands. They saw the plane disappear into the canopy of green. A plume of oily smoke rose to mark the spot. The legend of their admiral was ending in the dirt. The silence returned to the jungle after the metal stopped. The hunters turned their planes and headed back home. They had accomplished the impossible with very little fuel. Yamamoto's body would be found sitting upright in his chair. His gloved hand was still on his sword's hilt then, but the impact of this hunt went far beyond the jungle. In the end, the story of the P-38 is a lesson, a profound warning about the price of arrogance. The Japanese mocked the plane's strange look, but never saw its true power. They failed to respect the lethal will of their enemy. History reminds us that pride is the first step toward defeat. The sky became a graveyard for those who laughed first. The loss of Yamamoto was a blow to Japan's soul. He was the mastermind of their entire naval strategy. When he fell, the light of their victory faded away. It proved that a strange design can hide sharp power. The Americans showed they could strike the heart of anyone. The ocean was no longer a shield for their empire. This hunt was a testament to American intelligence and industry. It showed that a leader must respect a rival's potential. The P-38 proved that the American eagle finds its mark. The fork-tailed devils became a symbol of a dark future. They learned too late that different doesn't mean weak. The price of that lesson was their greatest mastermind's life. We look at these patterns that still shape our world. History belongs to those who look beyond the surface. The story of the P-38 is a reminder to stay sharp. It is a privilege to share these secrets with you. Keep looking for the stories that the textbooks often miss. Until the next revelation, stay sharp and stay very wise. It's a sobering thought, isn't it? Knowing that the entire fate of the Pacific War was decided in just a few minutes of fire over a jungle canopy. The Japanese believed they were in a safe playground, but in reality, they were in a slaughterhouse, unable to see the devil right in front of them. The death of Yamamoto wasn't just the loss of a general, it was the collapse of an entire strategy built on pride. But now, I want to hear what you think about this impossible mission. Was it a stroke of genius to use a broken code to hunt down a single man? Or did it blur the lines of honor, even in total war? If those P-38 pilots hadn't found the Admiral that morning, do you think the war could have dragged on for years? Or was Japan's defeat already written in the stars? Let's debate this in the comments. I'm truly curious to see your perspective on this what-if moment in history. And if you felt that spark of discovery today, realizing that a bulky machine could actually be a lethal shadow, don't let this be our last secret. Subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell right now. We're uncovering rare truths and hidden blueprints that most people are simply too afraid to notice. Thank you for spending your time with a friend like me. It's a privilege to share these truths with you. Until the next revelation, keep looking for the patterns. Tracer rounds began to stitch the night sky with bright, fiery lines, illuminating the darkness with every burst. The air was alive with tension, each glowing arc a silent message of danger and intent. The roar of engines and the crackle of gunfire echoed across the vast Pacific, as history was being written in real time. Yamamoto, the architect of Pearl Harbor, watched from his seat as the relentless American hunter finally closed the long, perilous gap. The chase had been swift and merciless, a testament to the skill and determination of the pilots involved. In those final moments, the mastermind of Japan's naval strategy found himself staring directly into the eyes of death. His fate sealed by the very war he helped ignite. The world would never be the same.